Thank you for joining us, everyone. We're just admitting everybody to the Zoom webinar right now. The event will get started in just a moment. Thank you for joining us, everyone. We're just admitting everybody into the Zoom webinar right now. We'll be getting started in just a moment. Thank you for joining us, everyone. We're going to be getting started in just a moment. We're just letting everybody into the webinar right now. Good evening, everyone. My name is John Taves, and I'm the event coordinator at McNally Robinson Booksellers in Winnipeg. Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge that McNally Robinson Booksellers is located on Treaty 1 territory, the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, Cree, Ojibwe, Dakota, and Dene peoples, and the homeland of the Métis Nation. In addition, McNally Robinson Booksellers itself rests on the land once occupied by the Métis community of Roostertown. We are gathered here today virtually, both here on Zoom and on YouTube, on the second National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, as we once again honor treasured elder and tireless community builder Theodore Niizhotay Fontaine with Niizhotay Stories, an annual event which calls on all of us to forge a healing path in the spirit of two hearts. This is an initiative that we partner with our good friends at the Winnipeg International Writers Festival on, and this is being presented also as part of their yearly festival, Thin Air, which is currently running virtually. So please do visit their website for more information, and I will put that link in the chat in just a little while. This year, we are thrilled to welcome Bomgiizhik Murdoch, a celebrated Ojibwe storyteller, artist, and musician from Nimkii Aazhibikoong, an Indigenous community that focuses on Indigenous language, art, and land-based activities. His paintings have become recognized worldwide, and he is in demand as a storyteller whose work is rooted deeply in traditional teachings. Second collection of his stories, in addition to the Trail of Nanabozu, which came out a few years ago from Kegedonce Press, who are also represented here and a treasured partner of our own, is now out. That is Serpents and Other Spiritual Beings, which is a gorgeous book that we've just received at the store. So please do find a way to get your hands on it. You will not regret it. The stories appear in both English and Anishinaabemowin and are accompanied by his vibrant artwork. Bomgiizhik perfectly exemplifies Theodore Fontaine's belief in working together to tackle the intense challenges in our communities, our country, and our land. Now, I'm going to be introducing our host for this evening in just a moment, but before I do, I just wanted to mention two quick things. The first is that imperfect closed captions are available for this evening. Those are accessible just by clicking the CC button at the bottom of the screen. They are auto-generated, so I do apologize, and I will be putting that in the chat as well in just a moment. The other thing I'll mention is that there will be an opportunity for you folks to ask questions or participate in the conversation as well. You can do so. You'll notice there is a live chat available to the side. So please do feel free to write in there and speak among yourselves as well. And if you have any questions for Isaac over the course of the evening, please do feel free to write them in there and we can gently interrogate him with them as the evening goes along. I'm sure you all have some really fascinating things to say, and we're delighted that you too will be able to join in the conversation. Now, that is more than enough for me at the moment. I am very pleased to be welcoming a host we are enormously fond of at the store, and basically any chance we have to have him host events, we will leap at. That is, of course, David McLeod, who works in media at NCI-FM, which is a provincial radio network, and he is also the executive producer of the Indigenous Music Countdown, among many other writings, tasks, and well, basically, David is one of those people you run into in almost every walk of life, particularly those of a cultural standpoint. He also helped host the launch of the Trail of Nanabozu when it took place with Christy Belcourt here a few years back. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming Bomgiizhik Murdoch and David McLeod.
Well, hello. Hi, everybody. I'm happy that you're tuned in. David, can you hear me?
Oh, and David, you just want to unmute yourself.
There you go. Can you hear me now? Yes, you can.
Yeah.
I can hear you now, yes.
Oh my gosh, there we go.
Right on.
Well, Isaac,
So it's been...
and welcome. We're thrilled. As John mentioned, the last time we talked with you, it was the Trail of Nanabozu. And this was the last book you wrote about. And I wanted to tell you, I ran into an elder from up north, and I was asking him, how's Nanabozu doing? And he said to me, oh, Nanabozu is busier than ever right now. There's so much things for him to do. And I wanted to ask you, how's Nanabozu doing?
Well, according to the old stories, they say that when the Anishinaabe people, or when the human beings are in great strife, and when they're in great complication, 10 medicine people will go to fast in a cave. They will seek the knowledge of where Nanabozu exists, and they will travel to find Nanabozu, and of course request Nanabozu's return to help us with, of course, the situation that we're in. So I think that according to old stories, Nanabozu is probably waiting for us, saying, "Come on, get on with it. Let's do this."
Well, and
so that's probably what's happening.
Thank you for sharing that. Just wanted to get another update, another perspective. Today's National Day of Truth and Reconciliation, being recognized, of course, everywhere. Murray Sinclair was, he said today that today is a day of reflection, and the rest of the year, we should think about how we're going to work towards the rest of each coming day. What are your thoughts on that day before we talk about your new book? I was curious to know what your thoughts were on today.
Well, I mean, today was of course, it's a day of mourning. It's a day of recognition. It's a day of truth, but it's also a day of reconciliation. And I think that for me, there's been always four main factors of reconciliation, which is land back, which of course is, very important for our people. It's important for our culture and our languages to have a land base. I also believe that it's also about, our own autonomy, having our own nationhood recognized, and, being able to exercise our jurisdiction to govern ourselves. That's also a part of moving forward. And of course, there's another part, which is the environment. We all have a place to make sure that frontline water protectors are being supported, that everybody's doing what they can to make sure that the environment is way better off than we found it. And last but not least, I think that it's important that the people that hurt our people, the criminals, need to be brought to justice. And so, it's really important because crimes were committed, hate crimes were committed against our people. So I think that's also part of reconciliation, is bringing those crimes forward, and people need to be held accountable for them.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I believe is, for me, what today represents.
And
That's a loaded question.
Well, no, and that was a really great answer. You've obviously given it some thought. I know here in Winnipeg, there was 3,000 people gathered today at the RBC Convention Center. There was 3,000 people outside hoping to get in. They limited the amount of people that due to COVID, that could enter the building. So it was an incredible gathering, and a lot of non-Indigenous people showing up as well. So that was really moving to see that. So, well, we're here today to talk about your new book, Serpents, and congratulations on it. It's a great book. I never learned so much about serpents until I read your book, and I know that Anishinaabe recognize serpents as powerful creatures. And can you share with us, Isaac, what makes a serpent so powerful in the culture?
Well, a serpent is part of the underground world. There's a power underground, and they call that power. It's very spiritual, and Sagamaging they call it, and it lives in Namiying. It lives underneath the ground. And so our people always knew that power was there, and that there was a great elaborate tunnel system that existed from lakes to rivers to mountains, and that there was a very extensive map of where these things lived. Our people understood and knew that. That's why during treaty, it was so important and so critical that nobody could dig deeper than a hand width, than the depth of an axe, than the depth of a plow, because they felt that if we were to disturb the underworld and the beings that lived under there, that if we dug up their power, it could destroy the earth. And that's old traditional knowledge that our people had. We already knew this a long time ago. Mm-hmm. And so, of course, when we went into treaty with the Jaganash, the British, it was very clear not to dig deeper than the depth of a plow unless you're to bury your dead, because we knew that power underneath the ground could destroy the earth if it was unearthed. And growing up, I always heard these stories about how these serpent eggs existed, and how the mining companies were after these eggs, and if the yolk broke in these eggs, then great devastation would happen. And that's exactly what happened. There was 13 different mining companies in my territory, all mining uranium. And they had these tailing ponds, and these dams, some of these dams broke, leaving us with the third world's largest radioactive waste site on the planet. And it devastated our watershed, leaving us with a cultural and ecological deficit. And so the stories were true. What the elders said were true. And so, I wanted to learn more. And my Indian name that I received a long time ago was Kegedonce, which means the man who paints the rocks. And so part of my education growing up was to learn about the Musnabiganan, the pictographs. And what I started to find out was that almost half of all pictograph sites were actual sites where serpents lived. And so, for example, where I come from, there's a white serpent that lives at Nsagamagaming. Mm. And this white serpent, of course, travels to Mujgudnagaming. And then from there it goes to Kipkop Kikmixing. And then from there it goes to Mindiguayasin. And this tunnel system keeps going. It goes to Winnipeg. It goes to Winnipeg. Then it goes to Siniswasaning. Then it goes to Bodashkaing. And this tunnel system, it keeps traveling. Then it goes to Quigwegzwang. Then it goes to Siniswasaning. And then from there it goes to Metigogzibing. And it goes to Wabkakagoajing. And then it goes to Naduigajing.
It is like highways. Like highways going everywhere.
it's like highways, and of course we had place names that described what was going on at these places. So wherever a serpent would make its den, there would be a tunnel in the water. It would make a den in the cave, and our people were fasting there. And that's where you'd find the pictographs. That's where you'd find people were going there to seek knowledge from these serpents for thousands and thousands of years. And so the pictographs themselves are like a receipt almost. It's a record of transaction that the people received from the serpents, which was usually knowledge or medicine.
There was
during times of war, famine, and sickness.
There was one point. There's one part of your book. It was like 1952, and the Catholic Church was trying to they were destroying those pictographs that you're talking about, which speaks to the speaks to the power that they had.
And there is people in 1952. Absolutely. So people were still, they called it worshiping, or they were still holding ceremony at these pictograph sites. And of course, the church and state felt that it was far too revolutionary. It was far too close to having an uprising, because people believe that the great serpent can help them during times of war and those sort of things. And so they were constantly adorning their war clubs with serpents and water beings, and they were petitioning them all the time during these times of oppression. And so it was important for the church to destroy them, some of them, because they felt that they would destroy any sort of an uprising. But in my reserve, when the church destroyed the pictographs in 1952, there was an old Indian. His name was Goegum. And he went there with a chisel and a hammer. And he actually, carved a great big serpent there and said, the more they destroy, the more we're going to make. And, for me, it seems like that's what we have to do now, because if 10,000 years of history of rock paintings tell us that we were at these serpent sites fasting and praying for knowledge during times of war, famine, and sickness, then it tells me that's what we have to do now. We're in an ecological and climate crisis. So why change the formula? So I think that, protecting these sacred sites, putting people out to fast there, is probably going to be critical for our survival.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's part of the reason why I wrote the book, was because I felt that it was important to expose to our young people the real power that's in the ground. And it doesn't lie within governments, or it doesn't lie within, man-made construct. We are in a spiritual time, and we need spiritual help ASAP. And so I think that the serpents have always been there for us. And this is my way of just showing, the young people, they're still there. And so I try to describe the stories in the book as much as I could.
There, you talk about the respect for the serpents too in the book, like making offerings and the elders having ceremonies by the waters, and just that personal recognition, and even maybe parts of your own clothing in that offering. I found that really fascinating. Like why?
Yeah. So what they.
Sorry, there's a little delay there, but please share.
So the offerings, Zenaba Matigo and Sak, it means ribbons and little sticks. And I used to see them prepare these sticks a certain way, a very old Indian way to prepare those sticks. And they use Indian paint, and you actually you paint your face too a certain way. And when you're preparing this offering, you're petitioning, you're making a gift, a present to the serpents, so that your family, your kids will be safe around the water, that they'll be kind to our canoes, because we have a way of life on the water, always traveling by canoe all the time. So by making this payment, it's like it's the ultimate respect. And when you take a piece of clothing and cut a little piece off and you put it in that offering, that those spirits will know who the payment was made for, and those people will be protected, more so. And so that was a very important part of our existence and our natural laws, was Bomgiizhik, was giving those offerings, Gikan mana anik, gawin wikaman an zino an ganak nagawan anin. We know that the laws have been broken. And so by making these offerings, we're helping restore those natural laws that have been broken. And so that's one of our main ones, is giving these offerings to the spirits of the water and of the underworld, so that our people can survive.
One of your chapters towards the end is entitled Laws, and you bring a perspective to what law is from the culture. Could you share a bit about that?
Yeah, I've always felt that, the same laws that the birds follow is the same laws that the Anishinaabe follow. That we have the same laws, that the laws are already here, and that when we come to this earth, we come to this place that we all call home, that we enter a very spiritual, deep ceremony. And in this ceremony, there's laws that govern it. And it's like the Memegwesiwak, it's the Chiginibeguk, it's the Nabanabe Kweak, it's the Nimkii Aazhibikoong, it's all the spirits of the land that govern the ceremony. These laws are not our laws. These laws are the earth laws. And everything is sort of wrapped into these laws. And so as Anishinaabe people, I believe those are our real laws. Mm-hmm. And as participants in the ceremony, that we have to walk lightly, and we have to, be very mindful of the great powers that are here on this earth. Because that's what the old people always said. Walk lightly. Adorn your moccasins with flowers, so you're reminded to be careful. And to always give thanks to the spirits for allowing us to be a part of this great ceremony here on earth, and to respect the great laws, the Chinook Nagawan Inanan.
There's one part of the book where you talk about my traditional territory, this is mine, and just that connection to the land is not that. Can you share a little bit about that, because it ties into that the connection as we as two-legged and the animals' connections as well?
Well, there's certainly there's really two ways of looking at land. So there's a rights-based approach to it and entitlement, and there's also a responsibility-based approach to it, where it's not so much about entitlement, but it's about connection. And I think that, oftentimes when we look at the land and when we look at the animals, the trees, even the light that shines in the sky, all of it is kind of weaved together. And, as Anishinaabe, we were invited to be a part of this land. We were invited to for it to be our home. And so I believe, just like the bird, will fly around and make a nest, and it'll go where it has to go. And because that it has the benzoin, it has freedom. And that's the same thing with the Anishinaabe. We have the freedom too. We're allowed to travel around and go make our nest. It's natural to do that. It's unnatural to stay in one place and to be caged up, under the Indian Act. That's not right. As a free people, we're allowed to go, Abdek Wibiska being in Anishinaabe Atsu and Nikia. Ndapnanan niab gedakimnan. You know, that's very important that we find our freedom. And you know, so I don't see myself as being an owner of the land, but just a visitor that has the freedom. We were invited as special guests. They say we come from a place called Gagegego Madzoning, which means the everlasting place in the sky. And that is, you know, we come down from the stars. And when we come to this earth, we're invited to this beautiful place. And when we die, we go back up there. You know, we go through the Milky Way. And of course, if you read my first book, I explain a little bit about that. But we go through the Milky Way and we go back up to the stars, to our home. So right now, I think that we have a great responsibility to respect the ceremony that we're in, to respect the lodge that we've been invited to. And, you know, it'd be really ridiculous for us to be fighting in the lodge over who owns it. That
Yeah,
seems
yeah.
this seems unnatural. I don't know. But good question.
Well, and you know, you brought up the stars, but there's one chapter where you talk about star people and the Anishinaabe having a connection to star people, and it reminded me of some Navajo stories as well as being connected to star people. What could you share about that?
Well, I mean, you know, our place is filled with magic. You know, it's designed like that. It's made like that. And the stars are full of spirit. And so, of course, the spirits come to visit us. And there's so many stories of when the stars came down to the earth. You know, when you're learning about plants, when you're learning about, you know, kandamo, when you're learning about, you know, anangwaskone, you know, there's all these creation stories of stars falling down to the earth and making these plants. And so, you know, we are the stars, and the stars are this beautiful map of how to live here on earth. So when we look at those sacred sites up there hanging above us, like for example, we'll say Jibai Mikan, you know, the Spirit Road, the Milky Way. When you look at that beautiful picture that's hanging above us, we learn so much from it. It's a blueprint on how to live here on earth. It's a code, you know. All of our stories are hanging up there. You know, they cannot be blown up. They're always going to be there forever. All we have to do is look up. And it's naive to think that, you know, that those spirits don't come down and visit us. We know that they do. Our old people always talked about them. And my great uncle, who's still alive, he's like, I don't know, like he's in his 90s. And I said, what's the secret to a long life? I said, because I want to live to be just as old as you. And he looked at me and he says, I'm just staying alive so I can wait for the star people to come down. And I said, who did you hear that from? Oh, my grandparents always talked about it, that the star people are going to come down and they're going to help us. And so I've always just thought that it was so beautiful. And, you know, I believe that the sky and the earth, you know, are connected the same way that a teepee looks like this. The bottom part of the teepee is us. And the top part of the teepee, the poles also represent a lodge. And that we're connected. And so we're connected to all of that up there. And of course, there's beings up there. We know that. Our stories tell us that. There's Nigananine, who guards the eastern door. There's Chabayabus, who of course walks along the Milky Way and helps people who are stuck. You know, there's different spirits that live up there that help us. But there's also spirits that come down to the earth and they help us here too.
Mm-hmm.
And so of course I wrote about some of them, which are interesting stories to read.
So
I
something
guess
that's
this yeah. I mean, I guess it's really about the book is really about believing. We need believers. People that believe in the magic of the earth and the sky, because that's who we once were as a people. That was the basis of our whole government, was being believers in this very supernatural, beautiful, spiritual world. And so that's what I'm trying to convey through the books.
Something that's kind of thematic and definitely in a few chapters of the 14 chapters that in the book is the importance of making offerings. And why is it important, Isaac, to give those offerings?
Well, first off, I can't believe you actually read the whole book, David. That's pretty cool. I think it's important to make offerings because it's our most unforgivable law. It's the one that can't be broken. If you want something, you have to give something for it. That's our most sacred law, is when you want something, give something for it. And because it helps restore the balance. It's the ultimate sign of respect. When you go into somebody's home, or and you're just not going to start taking everything off the walls, and you're not going to dig in the cupboards and start taking stuff. That wouldn't be right. This earth, this has offered us so much, and just like a river, it just keeps offering life for thousands of years. As long as everything that it touches, it gives life to it. And it has no prejudice.
Mm-hmm.
It has no preference. It just gives life really to everything. And we've been given that. We've been given so much. And so as good guests, it's important that we give something for that. We make offerings. We show our respect and our integrity. We show our good form as Anishinaabe people, that we live here with good taste, and that we make our offerings as a sign of truth of being here, as a statement of chimigwich, big thank you, for what we have. And so that's a big part of our laws, is giving. You call it Bomgiizhik.
And now you make reference to, you say petitions to the spirits, and I really thought that was quite powerful. It was that the recognition of those spirits being real, very real, is you just shared. And many people, some people have lost their way in those spirits. Can you go back to those beliefs, to recognizing and practicing that? Do you think it's difficult for maybe young people in the city who don't know those ways and want to find their way there?
Yeah, I think that it is a difficult thing, because our people have been through residential schools, and a lot of our people have been through the CES systems, the 60 scoop, and also just the globalization of Western education has really give us different filters, different glasses to look through. Like, we're looking through a different window now, not like the one that we looked through 100 years ago, before all this jazz happened. And so today it's really hard to look through this beautiful way of life that is so spiritual. And it's hard to do that when we go to this other way. And this was all done by design. The government wanted this. That's why they created the residential schools in the 60s scoop, and why globalization of Western education has been wiping out Indigenous knowledge all over the planet for the past 100 years, is it wants to desensitize. It wants us to be, our beliefs and our value systems to be taken away from being pointed towards the land and the spirit of the land, and more towards to economy, to capitalism and success, and those types of things, when they don't realize that the ultimate form of success is being able to drink out of any creek or any river on the planet. So I think that it is difficult, but I don't think it's impossible. I think that every human being on earth, somehow is searching or striving to find that peace amongst themselves with nature. And so as Anishinaabeg people, our elders were able to preserve some of these things for us. But I also think it's important to, look at diversity. The old Italian lady that's a gardener, that has her whole backyard just full of gardens. Like, it's important to listen to that old lady. Like, she can tell you stuff. So all over the world, elders have this deep ecological knowledge, and it's so diverse and rich. And so I always tell people, don't sell yourself short, and just listen to your own people. Listen to other tribes, other nations, and their knowledge, because collectively, when we all throw that stuff in a basket, that's how we're going to survive,
In the
And
book. Oh, sorry, go ahead. Yeah, sorry about that.
Oh no, you go ahead, David. I didn't even know what I was going to say.
Well, I was going to say that, I was just going to tie it in within the book Serpents. You say that we live in towards the end of the book, you get personal, and you say, we live in a very sacred time, and that ties into exactly what you're saying. And with climate change going on, but you do say that we have to have hope, and can you share about that?
Absolutely. There's quite a few Otsukanan, they call them, which are sacred stories that talk about the destruction of the earth by the humans. And this happened many times before in our past, where we lost our way. There's many Wigwas Mazaninan, birch bark scrolls, that talk about this too, about how we lost our way, how we forgot the laws, and we start to attack the animals. We start to burn the trees down. All these different stories. And, it was always the spirits that helped us in the end. And that it was through our petitions to the spirits that we're able to find our way again. And, I believe that we're in a sacred story now. There's no question, in 1,000 years from now, David, they're going to be, our descendants are going to be sitting around a fire, telling this Atsukan. They're going to be telling this sacred story of when the two-legged tried to destroy everything. And every story ends with a spiritual, a very massive spiritual intervention. And so I have no doubt that this one will play out the same way. But we have to believe. We need believers. And, I think that because we're in the sacred story now, what's fascinating, and it fascinates me all the time, is that we're the ones that are in the story. It's like we're here. We're in the story now. And so what are we going to do? Are we going to start putting kids out to fast on these mountaintops, on these serpent places? Are we going to, do this big land back movement and really get into our spirituality? Or are we going to really revitalize our languages and, return back? I don't know. But in this story that we're in now, it just doesn't seem like, getting a job, and just making ends meet is the success or the end of the story. It seems out of place. It seems like the story needs a really beautiful, amazing ending where it continues on to the next chapter, the next book. And hopefully it's people uniting for the earth in a way that's never been seen by anything ever before. There's 8 billion people on this planet. We can change things in an instant if we wanted to. There's nothing that nobody could do if we gather together. Even Indigenous people. I mean, what do you do when you have 1 million Indigenous people that are looking for change? It cannot be stopped.
And
There's too many. What do you do when there's young people that rally up? You can't stop them. There's the young energy is too tough.
well,
It's too beautiful.
and the energy that people will gain from your book is tied in with those stories, which very much speak to today. Because somebody looking at this book might go, "Oh, those are legends from the past, a collection of old legends from the past." When really, I like the spirit of your book is when you read this book, I hear your voice speaking. When you read this book, I get to be at a ceremony, like a dish with one spoon ceremony. You get to learn about that ceremony. You get to learn about some medicine people. You get to learn so much in this book. And, I wanted to ask Isaac, when you put a book like this together, is there protocols to put a book like this together?
Well, first off, I think I'm just going to give a quick shout out to some people. Like there's Kegedonce Press who, really do all the hard work.
Yeah.
And they're just such an amazing group of people that just, I can't do a book, David. I come from the bush.
Like
these.
Yeah, well, and it's an Ojibwe. It's in both English and Anishinaabe on one. Like that is amazing too. The translations.
Yeah, so we had like Patricia Big George, who's amazing help with the Anishinaabemowin. We had Kegedonce Press really just go to bat for me and help put this thing together. And so it's really, really it's the team. The team made this book happen. I really didn't do anything.
I think you did a lot. I think you did a lot, Isaac. What do you hope people, when they finish the book, they put it down? What do you hope that where their thoughts go? Where do you hope they go?
I want them to believe. I want them to believe in the spirit of this earth, the spirit of our forests and our waters. That's it. I just want people to believe, because I think when we believe in the great power of this land and sky, then people are not going to be so quick to try and destroy it. I want people to look at the world beautiful again, and that it's filled with beauty, and that there is consequence. There's natural consequence when we don't respect, the laws that are here. And we know that. We all know that. And I think that people have a hard time thinking that they don't know what to do. And I think the book offers solutions as individuals, what we can do as families, what we can do as people to make our offerings. And because believe me, in every single story where the humans try to destroy the earth, it was always the offerings in the end that made the difference, that saved everything. And so this really is a book about offerings, and believing in the great spirits that live in the trees and the waters.
I love how the spirit world is just as real as the natural world. That's something that comes out in your book too.
Yeah, I think that it's all like one and the same, Again, I don't know how long we're going for, but I just wanted to give a shout out to Kegedonce Press one more time, because the reason being is because these books it's not like I wrote them. I just told them. That's it. And people were able to transcribe them. Like there is all sorts of university kids. Oh, I'll transcribe your stories. I'll transcribe them. And they transcribed them. And, and then people at Kegedonce, they were able to fix them right, you know, because I don't talk right.
You talk great.
You know, they made it, they were able to like really put things together. And so I'm overwhelmed at the amount of support that Kegedonce Press, Patricia Big George, you know, all the people that transcribed the stories too. You know, like this, again, this is a group effort. This is not an Isaac Murdoch thing. This is an everyone that helped thing, you know? And so I'm very thankful. And you can get the book at the Kegedonce website. You can order it right on there. Couple presses of the button, and this thing will be delivered right to your door. It's amazing.
And if you're in Winnipeg, you come down to McNally Robinson and pick up a copy as well. Isaac, I have last question before we get to some questions that John wanted to bring up. Today I was at the gathering, and this man came up to me and he said he was at an event and he was introduced as an elder for the first time. And he was a little surprised that he was introduced as an elder. He just said, I wasn't ready for that. I don't see myself like that. And then I said, I see you as an elder. And definitely. And I said, there's a new generation of elders, right? Kind of coming up. How do you do with that being introduced and recognized as an elder now?
You know, I'm fighting it because it's like you don't want to let go of your youth. So I remember I did a ceremony and Ovid Mercury was there. And Ovid came up to me and he says, you know, Isaac, he says, I just love the way you talk and your stories. He says, it's so beautiful to meet such a young elder. And it was really just something else. And I was like, I'm not an elder, you know, and but the truth of the fact is that, you know, I'm a half-century old, you know, and I'm not getting any younger. And but I always say that I'm a helper. I'm just really a humble helper. And, you know, when I get my hair all falls out, which will be soon, you know, and the rest of it's going to turn gray, I have to put bear grease in my hair all the time. You know,
that's what Ovid Mercury does. Yeah.
But I'm really just a learner and a student too. That's what I really am, you know. But it's nice to be recognized, but really the truth is I'm still a student, a learner, you know, to elders. Yeah.
Well, it's beautiful. You're carrying the voice, that voice from the past, and more to today, and that it's a gift that you share, Isaac. So I appreciate it so much. Everybody does. I mean, and your music as well. There's some of the people watching this might know that you also record music and incredible voice and great lyrics. So, John, I know we have some questions probably coming in. So this is, I guess it's your cue to pop in.
And actually, Dave, I will say we have a very quiet
John, you gotta mute to turn your mic back on. Otherwise, Isaac and I gotta start beatboxing here.
Well, okay, so John, if you can mute this, you gotta turn your mic off.
My phone seems to be malfunctioning for some reason, so just I'm not sure if you can hear me now.
Oh yeah, we can hear you fine. We love your voice. It's on. Awesome. I think you're on the charts. You're on the charts.
So no, what I had said before my camera microphone malfunctioned is we have a very quiet and thoughtful group here, but no questions at the moment. So I'm not sure if you had any further questions yourself, Dave, or if Charlene wanted to join us to wind down the evening.
Can I pop in briefly to say, I know we don't have very many minutes left, but would you tell us a tiny story Isaac, just take us on a journey as only you can do.
Sure.
No pressure.
So this story I learned from my grandfather, and he was there. He was part of the story. There is a special place at a place called Kegedonce, the Serpent River. And on this river, it kind of twists and turns. It's almost like the Amazon River, where it's like twisting and turning, and it's like this great big snake. And sometimes there'll be islands on this river. And on one of these islands, there's a great serpent that lives there. A serpent they call Nsagama, which means like the great spiritual chief. And of course, at this place, there's a little rapids right beside this island on this river. And it's a very sacred place. And it was always told, do not go play around there. Don't go swimming there. That's not the place for the human being. That's their home. We have our home over here. Nobody's to go there and play around. But you know how kids are. As soon as you tell them that, they're just right there, And these were young men that were challenging, this rule. And growing up, I remember there was lots of places like that. Don't go set your fish net over here. There's things that live there. Don't go bother things over there. There's things that live in the rocks over there. Or Nimkii Aazhibikoong, we're seen over here, the mermaids. Or the thunderbird has a nest on that mountain up there. Don't bother anything around there. So there was lots of places like that growing up. And of course, at this place that I'm talking about, in Sagama, this island, it was forbidden to go there. But these two young guys were just having a good old time, jumping in there, going down the little rapids, laughing, and their arms are in the air. They're so happy. Yoo-hoo! Finally, one of the elders went near there and said, hey, you guys, get out of there. That's not for you to go to. Get out right away. Oh, that's only superstition. Don't worry about it. We're going to play here. Woohoo! And they kept going down the rapids, and they didn't listen to the old man. They should have listened to that old man. The old man said, you know what? We haven't given offerings in a long time. I'm scared that they might take you to be a relative. I'm scared they might. Oh, don't tell us what to do, old man. Woohoo! And he kept going down the rapids, and he kept going up and going down. Finally, the old man left. Shortly after that, it was silent. Complete silence. You could hear a pin drop. Not a single sound. Those two men got sucked in. Gone. So, of course, the old man went back to the village and said, something happened at Nsagama. There's two men that were playing there. They're gone now. We better go find them. So they went over there to go look for them. But they were gone. They weren't there anymore. But what they could see was like a whirlpool at the bottom of the rapids. And that's from the serpent going around like this. So, of course, people knew there was nothing they could do. So they called upon this very, very powerful medicine man who conducted the shaking tent. And he did that shaking tent right there. My grandfather was there when they did that ceremony. He was a young man, but he was there. All of a sudden, that tent It started to go back and forth, shake this way, that way. All of a sudden, you can hear talking and animals. You could see all sorts of things, lights. And all of a sudden, this main voice came out and said this. Those two men that were playing here were loud. For many years, nobody's given us anything or offerings. So we're going to take these two men to live with us. And that'll be that. Well, the medicine man, tried to negotiate and said, well, we'll give our offerings. We'll pray. We'll make sure that our offerings are given if you can return those men back. And that serpent said, I don't think so. There's one man there, I like him. He can live with us. I'll return the other one back to you. But you have to continue to make your offerings, or I'll adopt more. I'll make my family bigger. And that voice went back into the ground. The tent stopped shaking. And of course, that medicine man came out and said that other man will be found on the shoreline soon. And so they took down that shaking tent. And as soon as he took it down early in the morning, sure enough, that man washed up on shore. And in his eyes, there was two stones, black ones. They were shoved in his eyes, right in his eye sockets. There was sticks shoved in his ears, sticking out, green ones with leaves on them. He had a great big stone put in his mouth, all the way in there. He couldn't do nothing. He laid there and he died. And so the people buried him that way. They took him back to Winnipeg International Writers and they buried him there with those things in his mouth and his eyes and his ears. And it was said that those were put there. The serpent put those in his eyes and put those sticks in his ears and put that big stone in his mouth so that he would never say or tell what was in the serpent's den. Never repeat what it saw. Our people were powerful and they had a way of bringing people back sometimes. But he never came back. They buried him in a shallow grave. After that, our people never forgot to make our offerings. Every single year we make our offerings at that place because that's the most temperamental one that we know of in our region. That's the one that is the most grumpiest. That's the one that we don't want to offend, But we make our offerings there, not only because it's grumpy, but it's strong. Yes, it took that man. But when you make offerings to that mighty spirit that lives there, it can protect us too. And so it's important for us to, make our offerings and make sure that that serpent is always in our favor and that we never forget and that we never become rude people and not make our offerings to the water. And that's a story that really happened. My grandfather was there at the ceremony and helped find that man that died with the stones in his eyes. And that's a story I wanted to share with you. No, miigwech.
Miigwech, thank you so much, Isaac, for sharing that story. And incredible. And if you want to, hear more stories like that, get the book, sir. I'm doing the pitch here. Perfect pitch there. So anyways, get the book, 14 chapters, many stories, a lot of insights, and hopefully we'll see another book too in the future, Isaac. I get the feeling you have a lot more stories to share.
Yeah, and Alan Corbier of Chaging have had several conversations about teaming up and doing a book on the Indian Wars, which will be fascinating because it all has to do with different, practices during war. And it's fascinating. And, so I can't wait to do that. I've already started. So, it's just, there's so many things. I'm not going to give too much away, but Alan is an extraordinary teacher and knowledge keeper as well. And so I'm really excited about doing this book with Alan, and it's going to be really cool.
Well, thank you for taking time to share with us this evening. It's as part of the thin air. We always appreciate your time, your talent, and your connection to community storytelling legends, and of course, caring for the environment and being land protectors. So thank you again, and wish you all the best with everything you do, because you do so much.
I'm just going to chime in and echo that, David. It's just been such a spectacular way to spend an hour. And for those of us who are a long ways outside of these stories, it's just a window into a place that is full of wonder and challenge. And I mean, you make a believer of me. So I'm so grateful for the stories and so grateful for your leadership and your generous sharing. And thank you to you too, David. Your questions and conversation were just delightful to listen to tonight. I really do encourage everyone who is listening tonight or who will hear this over the next few weeks or months to get hold of this extraordinary book. It also has Isaac's art, and if you haven't encountered this incredible art, this is a man who does pretty much everything with a sparkle in his eye and a great deal of wisdom to ground everything. You can also visit the thinairfestival.ca site and hear 3 extended storytelling sessions that we have posted there on Isaac's writer profile. So I really encourage that as well. And thank all of you for coming. It's always so great for us at the festival to have a chance to connect with McNally Robinson, who is a core for the community here. And it has been a very important undertaking for us at the festival to find a way to honor Theodore Fontaine, who was a great festival friend and a personal friend as well. So Niizhotay Stories are in his honor because he also was a keeper of stories and a keeper of knowledge and a builder of communities, a person who knew how to reach out and connect. And I think he would have loved to hear the stories tonight, Isaac. He would have resonated with your ideas about talking to the old Italian lady to find out about her gardening and understanding that when we all find ways to connect, this is how we save ourselves in this world. So thank you so much for your time and for your generosity and for your offerings to us. It's greatly appreciated. So good night, everyone. Thank you for coming tonight.
Abama pi guab nagom, and getting and dam yayaman pi giganonenguk. It's been a great honor to speak to you, and it's just I had a great time. Thank you, everybody. Thanks, Dave. Thanks, Kegedonce. Thanks, the library, everybody, and have a really good night.
Thank you.